welcome to Adobe Photoshop. Today we're going to go over just some of the very basic elements of Photoshop, opening files, and how to navigate the Photoshop interface. So if you open up Photoshop, you will come to a home screen, and you can create a new document by clicking on the Create New button, or once you have some projects built up, they will pop up down here at the bottom of your screen. So when you go and hit Create New, you'll get another window here where it'll have a bunch of documents set up, and on this first time you may not have anything here. So at the top of the screen you may go through and go to the word Print, and you will have a choice of letter size, legal or tabloid, etc., all different types of paper. So, you know, I would just stick with letter, and you can hit create, and you would open up a blank document, okay, with a white background. Now, another way to open up a Photoshop document is by actually dragging a photograph into Photoshop, because a lot of times you're going to be working with photographs. So if I have a photograph saved on my computer someplace, you can simply drag it to the Photoshop icon and it'll open up this picture in Photoshop. So I will do that right now for you. You just need to be careful because a lot of times you'll have a Photoshop document saved, and if you have Photoshop document, it'll say PSD as the file type. It'll say PSD instead of JPEG here. So those types of files you could just double click on and it would open up in Photoshop. But if I double clicked on this JPEG file, it would not necessarily open up Photoshop. It'll probably open up some kind of preview window where you would be looking at your photograph, and it kind of would look like this, except it wouldn't have all these extra panels and stuff around it. You might think that you're in Photoshop. So you know, you got to be real careful when you do that. So if you have a JPEG picture, you can click and drag it into Photoshop, or you can also go to you know, File, Open, and find your picture in the list of wherever you saved it to and open it that way as well. So that should be pretty familiar to people that have used Adobe software before. So here's a picture that was taken locally, and I'm just going to kind of use this as my backdrop for the stuff I'm going to be talking about here. The windows are set up and panels are set up very similar to Illustrator, but they work much differently, and I'll get into each one of those as we go. There's a set of tools here, and the tools may change in Photoshop. There's different presets for it. So if you go to Window and Workspace, you want to be on Essentials, okay? But you may notice that at times when you're using Photoshop, if I click on 3D, these tools now are different than what they were before. So sometimes if you're missing tools and stuff, you want to make sure your toolbar is set to Essentials, okay? And you can keep it that way, and there's actually more tools here than what you had before. The Layers window is very important. So this is the Layers panel, and sometimes they're set up as panels, like they might be on this little strip of icons for each type of panel. So each one of these kind of clicks open a new little window set. All right, Layers is noted by these two kind of stacked up squares here, and this is a very important window to have. In fact, I often like to have this window outside of the panel because you use it so often in Photoshop that you need it out on your screen. And you'll notice there is a single layer in here called background, and that's the layer we're working on right now. We will get more into the Layers window down the road. Other things you need to know as far as navigating, these top items up here are your drop-down menus, and inside each of these you're going to find a whole section of tools or filters and things like that. So these are going to refer to as your drop-down menu. You have an options bar at the top of your screen up here. Okay, this bar is really important in that the tools, depending on which tool you're on, this options bar will change. So right now I'm on a paintbrush tool, and I can see you can select the brush size and all that kind of stuff, and you can paint out on your screen. If I jump to a different tool, these options change. So for each tool, you'll have your options, they'll pop open right away. So you don't have to access the options window for each tool like you do in some of the other programs. So, and then the other place you would go to open up Windows is under the Window drop-down menu, and you'll see an alphabetical list of all the windows that you can open in Photoshop. There are a bunch of these windows that you're probably never going to use, but some that you're going to come across very often. You know, if you're using text, you're going to want to have your character window open, etc. So any type of window that you need, you can always go to the Window drop-down menu and select the window that you want. If you need to move your document around, you can zoom in and zoom out of your document. There's a bunch of ways to do that. Command plus, Command minus, all right, or if you're on a PC, it's Control plus, Control minus. There's also a zoom tool, so you can click and drag to the right and click and drag to the left to zoom in and zoom out. If you lose your document, hit Command 0, and that is fit back on screen. And you also can navigate by using the hand tool. And I never really use the hand tool out of the toolbox, but the hand tool, when you click on drag on something, it'll move around the screen. But let's say you're using a different tool, like a selection tool, and you want to jump quickly to the hand tool, you just space bar, and then you're able to move your document around. And when you let go, you're back to the tool you were just using. Okay, so that's the first little lesson, intro to Photoshop.